sensing this danger. This is the greatest showman! He is floating on air now! He's going to sit in back. Dawn, bang! Down he goes! They love it!
Hello, I'm Harbeer Singh and welcome to the AFL Grand Final edition of our program. Our panelists today are Fawad Andrews, Rajbir Kuman and George Gracias. Hello all.
Hi Harbeer.
Hi everybody.
What a week of thrillers. First the preliminary finals and then the Brownlow count. On Friday night from the MCG, Brisbane failed to make any significant ground on Geelong, letting them win by a massive 71 points. On Saturday, it was a different story from the SCG as the Sydney Swans just hung on to win by 1 point against a Collingwood side steaming home, but just failed to take the game too little, too late. More thrills and excitement at the Brownlow count on the Sunday night as Patrick Cripps won the last vote of the count from Lachie Neale and Touk Miller. More about the count later in the show, but just for the record, the Multicultural Footy panel here has picked the first three place getters for the last 3 years. George, what an exciting weekend.
It was, and the game is in a very healthy state. We saw some fantastic contests, and how about those Cats winning 15 matches in a row to secure their second grand final berth in the space of 3 years, and they're looking to make amends after that disappointing loss to Richmond in 2020. And Patrick Dangerfield may finally win that elusive premiership, guys.
It's a good one, George, and first of all, welcome back. And
Great to be back.
Great to be back. I hope you had a great holiday. Obviously you did. We can see that from the skin and all that.
A holiday in the Greek islands is always a healthy refresher.
Fantastic. Just following on what you just said about Geelong, and did Brisbane turn up at all? They had two thrilling games in the last previous weeks, and they won them with the lowest margin. Did they run the race earlier? What do you think?
We all expected Geelong to win this one, but definitely did not expected, Lions not to turn up, had this huge margin in the end. That was a bit of disappointment from Chris Fagan's team.
Yeah,
That's
well,
right.
their forwards didn't turn up. We were expecting Joe Danaher and others to perform well. But we have to give credit to Geelong, the way they have set up their defence system. It's very hard for any forward line to work against the Tom Stewart, the Coyne, the kind of form they are in. And their forwards like Stengel, Hawkins, everyone. And as you mentioned, Patrick Dangerfield, he's very hungry at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for the Norm Smith that's mine, I want to get it. And he'll perform in that way in the grand final too. But in that game, I think Chris Fagan couldn't answer. A lot of turnovers, just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I think, Harbeer, the disappointing, we knew Geelong was too strong because, as you said, George, they won the last 15 games in a row. But to lose by 71 points, that is a disappointing thing, you just can't, especially when all the other games were so close. What do you think, George?
Look, I think Brisbane were cooked. Their victory over the Demons the week before was almost their grand final. Some sad stories to come out of the match. Max Holmes injuring his hamstring, but Tyson Stengel was the positive for the Cats. A tale of redemption for him after a potential career-ending incident in South Australia.
No, definitely. But I think the other final, that sort of kicked right in. That's exactly how we wanted it to be.
I agreed. The way Swans, they were leading the game with I think 25-point margin in quarter 3, and then Pies, they kept, they came back from behind and kept that spark alive in the game. And huge credit to Pies, I would say. We have to show some love to the Pies, and they, finally, and in the end, it was just, Swans won by 1 point.
I think they proved that all year. They were just doing it like 10, 11, 12 times. And, credit to them. They came back from 4 goals to within 1 point. But that 1 point, George, I'll just go to your memory lines. So Tony Lockett scored after the siren 26 years ago. Remember that goal?
Yes, I was a young boy at the time. That was a famous match, but Swans, they've repeated the dose. Collingwood unlucky. They'll be ruining the decision to have Maynard on Buddy Franklin in that first half because Franklin ran him ragged. As soon as they put Darcy Moore on him after half-time, Franklin hardly touched the ball. Some controversy with the umpiring. Papley pushing Darcy Moore. The umpire still awarded it a mark to Papley, ended up kicking the goal, and that was a vital goal. Swans held on, Pies to their credit, fought it out. They've had some close matches of late. If you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and in the end, Pies had one go against them.
Yeah. Franklin might not have touched the ball a lot, but what I noticed is he was, giving a nudge to every player on his way on the field. So that was very something.
What a story, and especially Paddy McCartan as well, the way he is playing at the moment. The grand final on Saturday afternoon is going to be a monumental contest against the best forward line in the league, Geelong, and the toughest back line in the Sydney Swans. Judging by the results of previous matches throughout these final series, I think it's going to be a very close and a thrilling game. Fawad, how do you see the grand final unfolding?
Yes, without a doubt, that is going to be a spectacular grand final because we've got the best team in the competition this year. They won 15 in a row, and they were the strongest team. It is their year, I think. Don't forget that they lost last year in the grand final or premier final.
A preliminary final, the Cats, yep.
Yeah. So I think the Cats will be too good. What do you think, George?
I will tip Geelong. Geelong have been fantastic all year, but I'm not going to discount the Swans. They had that fantastic win in the tight contest against the Pies. It'll be a fairy tale if Franklin can win another premiership. And we spoke about Dangerfield. It'll be a great achievement for him. He's had the lifelong ambition of winning the premiership. So there will be some fantastic contests all over the field. I'm looking forward to Callum Mills taking on the power forwards of Geelong, and Hawkins, he'll pose a threat. So there will be some fantastic clashes and some really, really important battles that will shape the match.
So it'll be very close?
Well, I'm tipping the Cats by 4 goals.
I'm tipping Cats too, but if the Swans can keep their pressure on early in the game, then I think it will be a close game. Otherwise, Cats could dominate the field.
Yeah, no, you're right. I believe Geelong is like at the moment they're probably already celebrating. They've already got their speeches ready and everything. The way they're
Quite
playing
possible.
at the moment, but Sydney can ruin their day. So we'll see how it pans out. But Sydney is gonna come hard, and they're going to hunt Geelong. So Geelong will really have to perform well. We're seeing that it went really close with Collingwood last time as well, and there is no doubt that Sydney can do that as well.
Well, we're going to see a very attacking game because both sides have got great midfields and forwards. So,
thank you guys, and we'll be back shortly to discuss last week's AFLW results and more on the Brownlow medal count. You are with the Multicultural AFL and AFLW Footy Show. Welcome back to the program. Round 4 of the AFLW again had some incredible results, including the competition's second draw in back-to-back rounds. On Friday, North Melbourne defeated Geelong by 12 points, while on Saturday, the West Coast Eagles, away from home, managed to defeat the GWS Giants by 7 points. The Gold Coast beat the highly fancied St Kilda by 14 points, and Port Adelaide crushed the goalless Sydney by 66 points. Fremantle and Carlton finished in an exciting draw, with each team scoring 5 goals, 2 behinds for the match. It was the Blues' second tie in 2 weeks. The Western Bulldogs beat Hawthorn by 30 points, while the Adelaide Crows hammered the Magpies to win by 5 points. Richmond held the determined Essendon to a finish just 2 points ahead, and Brisbane defeated Melbourne by 15 points. Rajveer, how did you see the last round?
Well, we had very wet and slippery conditions over the weekend, but that did not dampen our spirits of AFLW players, and we had yet another exciting round of Season 7. On Friday night, we had North Melbourne versus Geelong Cats. Kangaroos dominated the field when they kicked the first 4 of the game. I think they adapted to the wet conditions quite quickly in Launceston, and that made them the early lead in the game. And while Cats kept on waiting, for the perfect or better option to score a goal, but they did not have enough. Worth mentioning, though, Geelong Cats star midfielder Georgia Perspakis, who had a game-high 32 disposals, and she now is the youngest to surpass the 30-plus disposals in a game.
She's an absolute star of the competition. Unfortunately for her, the team couldn't get the job done, but credit to North Melbourne. They, as you said, Rajbir, they've obviously handled the conditions a lot better. So that puts them in a strong position, the North Melbourne team. They're just outside of the top 8. They're sitting in 9th place. That's a good springboard for them. But in the other clash that followed, GWS Giants defeating West Coast. Sorry, it was West Coast defeating the Giants by 7 points, I beg your pardon. A great defensive turnaround by West Coast Eagles, because you remember last week they conceded 9 goals. So they conceded 9 goals in the opening half against Essendon. So they really tightened their defence, a much better performance. Also, they got their attack working really well. And it was a terrific win after a disappointing loss the week before.
Absolutely. I think they changed their strategy, and they had better plans for this round.
And Rajbir, of course, the next game is Gold Coast and St Kilda. It's good to see some goals scored. We see Gold Coast inaccurate in front of the goal, so they're scoring 5-12. But they managed to get 42 points, and they ended up beating, of course, St Kilda. They scored 4-4 to 28, so they managed to beat them by 14 points. What did you think of that?
Oh, that's right. They could have their home ground advantage as well. I think St Kilda, we know that they have very good players this season, and beating them is a huge win for Gold Coast Suns.
It was a match played in really tough conditions, and great performances by Rowbottom and Jones, so well done to those players.
Yes, and the next one we have is Port Adelaide versus Swans. We know both the two clubs are from the expansion side. Port Adelaide, I think they proved their talent in the last round as well, when they had a draw with Carlton. And 10 goals and 8 behinds, they kept Swans only to 2 points and won this one by a giant margin of 66 points. I think Power's captain, Erin Phillips, who had her 50th game in this round, she not only did well for herself, with 16 disposals, but she also created opportunities for her fellow players to, score goals. With the likes of Hannah Ewings and Abby Dovrick, the goals they had from the 50-meter arc were they were just fabulous. How do you see that?
Well, you've neglected to mention one really important point, Rajbir. Port Adelaide notched up their first win, so that's a cause for celebration.
Absolutely, yes. It's a great win for them.
A win and a draw.
Come on, talk it up. You're a South Australian. Talk it up.
That's what I'm saying. A win and a draw and 6 points on the board for a new team, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
So I think that you'll see they have a good team, and then they pinched the best player from Adelaide Crows, which is Erin Phillips.
And you're still bitter about that, aren't you?
He's cut at the moment. Yeah, and another draw from Carlton.
Oh, absolutely. I think they finished both the Indigenous round with a draw. It was the Dockers, with 4 goals. They had a good lead of 18 points in the first half. Carlton came from behind, and with the goal from Bren Moody's, which was late in the last term, Blues got 1 point lead. And then with 70 seconds left in the game, Dockers Teague had a beautiful chance, to score the goal. She was right in front of the goal, but she missed it, and they had to, settle down with a draw here.
That's the second draw in a row for the Blues, so they'll need to get their kicking boots on and finally notch up a win.
Yeah, hopefully.
Speaking of notching up a win, the Hawks still haven't won a game yet, Rajbir. A disappointing loss to the Western Bulldogs.
Oh yes, that's right. I think Bulldogs somehow are keeping their winning streak in the season. So they have won all 4 so far. With the likes of Ellie Blackburn, I think their forward line is very strong. And yes, Bulldogs won this one by 30 points.
So you may have the AFLW to do what the AFL team didn't do this year.
Hopefully, but I think they really need to, keep working on their forward line if they want to be in the top 8.
What about the Hawks, Rajbir? Where do you see their season progress or regress? The Hawks, how do you see their season moving forward go?
They are from the expansion side. We know that probably they need more experience, to have a win. Hopefully they have, in the next couple of rounds. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, now definitely. All in all, good games. That's what we all look for. And yeah, thanks guys. I will be back soon with more from our panel, with more AFLW previews and that Brownlow medal victory by Patrick Cripps. See you on the other side. We are back again. Continuing with our AFLW previews, Adelaide beat Collingwood, Richmond held a rampaging Essendon, and Brisbane beat Melbourne. Rajveer.
Yes, Magpies Crows was a really close one. With 5 points win, Adelaide Crows, they had their third win of the season, while Pies had their first loss of the season.
Just before you go to the next game, believe me, the Adelaide Crows had 11 shots, only scored 2 goals. How is that possible? 9 misses.
That's right. So they had the lead, but not with a very high margin throughout the game. With the likes of Ebony, Marinoff, and Hatchard, Crows, controlled major portion of the game. Something related to the game I noticed is, this was the first ever game of AFLW where all 3 umpires were the, women, female umpires who officiated the game. So that's really interesting to see, it gives opportunities to more young umpires as well.
Great to see the Trailblazers. And in the Dreamtime clash, it was the Tigers defeating the Bombers by 2 points only, Rajbir.
Yes, that was an exciting game. I personally thought Essendon would have this one, and they were leading the game, with 8 points in the first quarter, but then it did not take Tigers to level it up in the second quarter. But then Bombers' Amber Clark's brilliant goal brought it down to 1 point margin, but they did not convert it into victory, and Tigers had this one with 2 points lead.
And with that win, that puts them in the top 8.
Oh yes, it does. And then I think the strategy Richmond Tigers had it from the Sarah Hosking, who contained their midfielder, Bombers midfielder Maddie Prespakis, and limited her only to just 11 disposals. Nam versus Brisbane Lions. I think everyone had their eyes on this one because these 2 teams look like very strong contenders for the grand final. And Lions not only maintained their first position of this season, they also break the losing streak they had against the Nam and won this match.
Looks like the Brisbane team is expert in beating Melbourne, eh? The men's and the women's. So I don't know about that, but.
And Nam had a great start with 3 goals in this one, actually, in the first quarter. And I think without Tyler Harris, who got 1 match ban because of a rude tackle, they could not keep their pressure on the Lions as they should have been. And my tips for the next week are Fremantle, St Kilda, North Melbourne, Essendon, Hawthorn, Melbourne, Brisbane Lions, Port Adelaide and Adelaide.
Thank you. Carlton captain Patrick Cripps has pulled off a remarkable Brownlow medal win, eclipsing the bookies' hot favourite Lachie Neale in the final round vote of the season to become the AFL's best and fairest player for 2022. In the closest medal count for many years, 27-year-old Cripps came from behind to win by a single vote from Lachie Neale and 2 votes from Touk Miller to become the 3rd Carlton player in the 26 years to win the medal since Chris Judd in 2010 and Diesel Williams in 1994. George and Fawad, would you like to add on to last night's Brownlow count?
Well, it was a great count. If Gil McLaughlin had his way, Paddy Cripps would have been rubbed out in those final couple of weeks. So Patrick Cripps is happy, so is his lawyers and his legal representatives. And I like how after during the acceptance speech, Hamish McLaughlin made reference to Dennis Denudo, that famous character from The Castle. So that was a light-hearted moment. But seriously, it was a great season for Patrick Cripps on a personal level. Disappointing for the Blues to miss out on the final series. So Carlton supporters may take some solace from Paddy Cripps winning the Brownlow medal.
Well, what a great night last night. It just kept us to our seats till the last vote of the night, the last round. And as you said, he won by 1 point. But you get a feel for the others like Ollie Shaw and Oliver, and then of course
Took Miller,
Miller and Neil,
Lockie Neal. Yep.
Lockie Neal. He thought he had it in the bag, and then was 1 point.
Even the bookies thought the same.
But just one quick question. Is it like how the other guys feel, because they feel that he should have been pinned, he should have been suspended, like how's.
Well, that's how it goes, I suppose. To me, it's what a season we had. When we had the round till 23, we didn't know until the last moment, and saved with the Brownlow. So that keeps you exciting. This year has been so exciting in different forms, and Brownlow wasn't any different. We'll just have to keep it aside what happened with the legal and all that kind of stuff, because that's kind of part of
You can't
footy.
take it away from Habir, because he played a fantastic season. He's he was tremendous, George, wasn't he? He had he's been scoring goals, he's been playing tough, and
Well, he's carried that Carlton team for many years during that really dark period. Obviously, Blues are on the march. They narrowly missed out on the 8th, so they have deserved optimism for next season. In terms of the Melbourne players, I thought Oliver lost too many votes to Christian Petracca. He was my pre-Brownlow favourite, but well done to the Melbourne players. They weren't quite good enough in terms of making the grand final, but well done to all of those players that were in contention right to the very last vote.
No, definitely. Moving along from the AFLW and back to the AFL Grand Final. In one word, guys, which side will win the Grand Final and by how many points? Fawad.
well, I predict the Geelong by 18 points.
And George?
Cats by 4 goals.
Rajbir?
I would say Cats by 25 points, but I would like to see getting into the extra time game. So let's see.
Yeah, to me, it's Sydney by 2 points. And our director says Geelong by 24 points. Starting next week and going forward, this program and podcast will bring you the full AFLW season until the AFLW Grand Final. There will be a relatively new panel with myself as anchor, panelists Rajbir Kuman and Tash Relios, with special guests and occasional commentary from our experts. Well, that's all we have time for this week. You can also watch us in Adelaide on Channel 44, Friday 6:30 p.m, on Aurora Foxtel TV at 1 p.m. Saturday, and on the Nembc YouTube AFL. You are listening to the podcast on the Community Radio Network, and the AFL Diversity News in 8 languages can be heard during the home and away season on select multicultural diversity radio stations throughout Australia. I'm Harbi Singh, and from our panelists Fawad, Rajbir and George, good night, and our panel will be with you next week.